Hello everyone. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we are continuing our block by block mapping of Swift MT103 message to the ISO 20022 pacs.008 message. In the previous parts of this series, we discussed the basic and application header information, that is block 1 and block 2. In today's session, our focus is block 3 of the MT103, which is also known as user header block. So at first glance, block 3 looks quite small. It may contain references like 108, 111, 119, 121, 113, etc. However, these fields perform some very important functions. They help identify the message, track the payment, apply specialized service rules, and support automated processing. ISO 20022 does not contain any dedicated section for block 3. Instead, the information from MT103 Block 3 may be distributed across these areas: app header, document, and network level. During this video, we will understand what each important Block 3 field means, where it may appear in ISO 20022 format, and whether the mapping is direct, conditional, or service dependent. So let us begin by understanding the Block 3. So what Block 3 actually is? Block 3 is called the user header block. Right? There's the user header block of a Swift fin message. The word user here generally refers to information supplied or used by the financial institutions and Swift services for additional message processing. Block 3 supports three broad purposes. One is the message identity, second is tracking, and the service rules. Message identity, for example, the sending bank can assign its own reference to the message through the field, for example, field 108. This helps the bank locate and reconcile the message. Payment tracking, for example, your field 121 comes to picture here. Field 121 carries the UETR, unique end-to-end transaction reference number, which allows the payment to be tracked across the correspondent banking chain. The third purpose is service and processing rules. So fields such as 111, 119 may indicate that a specific Swift service or validated message variant applies. Notice what the block 3 does not carry or does not normally contain the payment information, such as payment amount, debtor, creditor, or account details. Those payment details are mainly carried in the block 3 of MT103. Block 3 therefore provides supporting information about how the message should be identified, tracked, validated, and processed. The slide shows 6 fields that may be encountered in block 6. So these are the 6 fields. So 103. This is called Service Identifier. This is basically used to indicate a specific Swift fin service, closed user group, or a specialized processing arrangement under which the message is being exchanged. Field 108 is called message user reference. Field 111 is called service type identifier. Field 113 is called banking priority. 119 is validation flag, and 121 is UETR. For a normal MT103, field 121 is particularly important because it carries the UETR, it carries a transaction reference number, and field 108 may also be present as a sender's own message reference. Field 119 appears when a validated message variant such as MT103 STP applies, and field 103, 11, and 113 are more service specific or implementation dependent. We will see the mapping of these fields in the coming slides and see the details as well. So this slide explains one of the most important concepts in the entire mapping exercise. So I already mentioned this in the beginning that there is no single section inside pacs.008 which is dedicated for block 3. If you remember, for block 1 and block 2, most of the values in block 1 and block 2 were directed or were mapped to mostly the business app header element, app header part. But in case of since in block 3 the tags have different purposes, the ISO 20022 does not group them together. Instead, it distributes across these 3 separate layers: app header, document, and the network layer. This is based on what each piece of information actually does. So the first layer is app header or application header. This is where information about the message identity goes. things like sender and receiver information and the business service being used come under this application header. Second layer is your document. Um, this layer basically contains the uh, actual payment message information. This is where payment tracking, transaction processing details remain. For example, your UETR information. The third layer is network layer. This is not part of ISO 20022 message body or ISO 20022 message schema at all, but rather FIN specific technical or service metadata that is specific to the network transporting the message. Some basic, some block tree tags are really just plumbing for the old MT network, and they don't have a direct equivalent in ISO 20022. They are basically handled at the network level instead. So hence we cannot map block tree as a whole. Instead, we need to go tag by tag. First, understanding the purpose of the empty field. Second, by identifying the corresponding ISO 20022 layer, and thirdly, by determining whether the message can be, whether the value can be copied directly, translated, generated, or not mapped at all. Basically, this table gives us the complete high-level picture of the mapping. Let us go through the fields one by one. Field 108. This is your message user reference. In short, it's also called MUR. The closest ISO 20022 concept may be your application header. And inside application header, it's a business message identifier. Because the MUR in block tree basically identify a message. And we also use this particular element in ISO 20022 to identify message. However, this is only a conceptual or conditional mapping. A bank may generate a new business message identifier instead of copying the value there under field 108. So that's why this mapping is based upon the conception or the condition applied. There is no direct mapping. The value under the value under this 108 can be applied, can be mapped to this business message identifier, but that depends upon certain conditions. Field 121. Field 121 contains the UETR, unique end-to-end transaction reference number. This is the clearest direct mapping we can see between MT103 Block 3 with pacs.008. The MT103 value in field 121 moves to your the credit transaction reference, credit transaction information element, and inside it we have a payment identification, and inside payment identification it's a UETR element. The same UETR value that this field 121 holds will be carried forward or should be carried forward for the same payment transaction. So whatever value we see, the system captures under 121 will be directly mapped to or will be placed against this particular element in pacs dot in the ISO 20022 format. So that's a direct one-to-one. Next, coming to field 119. This field is called validation flag. A common value you will see in field 119 is STP, which stands for straight through processing. So when you see this, it's telling you that the message is the STP variant of MT103, meaning it was built to follow a stricter, more automation-friendly rule set that requires certain fields to be filled in a specific, unambiguous way, so banks can process it without manual intervention. So seeing STP in field 119 tells you that the entire outgoing pacs.008 message needs to comply with whatever users guideline or profile has been defined for the STP value, STP style payments, automated payment basically. So we should not say the text STP is simply converted to SDVA. So a service level code such as SDVA may be required by a particular user's guideline or market practice guideline, but this is a rule of that profile rather than a direct field-to-field transformation from TEC 119. By the way, this SDVA basically stands for same-day value available, and it instructs that the payment must be executed or settled with same-day value that is credited on the same business day. So in short, the value that is captured under this tag 119 will be stored under this credit transaction information element. Inside inside credit transfer transaction information, we have payment uh, information, and inside payment information we have this service level. The equivalent value inside tag 111 is captured under or is mapped to this service level basically. Then field 111111 is service type identifier. It tells you which Swift service the message is being sent under. Think about it as a field that identifies a specific channel or service context on the Swift network that this message belongs to. So when converting to ISO 20022 application header, there is a field called business service that plays a similar role. It also identifies which business service the message belongs to. So the actual business service value comes from the mapping based on the applicable usage guideline, and field 111, field 111 value does not get posted directly into the business service. So it will depend upon the directives that come from the usage guideline or the market practice. So that's why there is no direct mapping of this value. Then we have field 113. Field 113 contains the bank priority. So the nearest ISO 20022 business concept may be your instruction priority. In short, it is an instruction priority. However, this mapping is conditional. We need to first understand the meaning of the MT value and the applicable bilateral or service rules between the financial institution. Finally, we have field 103, which is the service identifier. This may also affect the business service element, the network layer, or closed user group arrangement. So it doesn't have a universal direct pacs.008 field mapping. The key takeaway from this slide is that not every source of field has a one-to-one destination. Only field 121 is directly mapped to your UETR element under your payment ID and inside the credit transfer transaction information. Field 108 is conceptual and or conditional. And then field 103, 111, 113 are conditional or they are mostly service dependent. Then field 119, field 119 influences the applicable STP processing profile. Let us now examine the field, each and every field that we have discussed in the previous table. Let us now examine field 108 in detail. So field 108 or tag 108 contains a message user reference, commonly called MUR. In our example, this is how it looks like in the MT1. This is a reference assigned by the sending bank to identify the Swift FIN message. So we can think of it as a bank asking what internal or operational reference have I assigned to this particular message. This this reference can be useful for message searching, reconciliation, operational investigations, acknowledgement matching, and your exception handling. For example, if the receiving bank reports that a message cannot be processed, the sending bank may use this MUR to locate the original FIN message in its payment or messaging system. The possible mapping in the pacs.008 or ISO 20022 format is your application header, and inside application header it's a business message identifier. So this element uniquely identifies the ISO 20022 business message from the perspective of the sender. Because MUR and this business message identifier both identify a message, using the MUR as a source for business message identifier can be a reasonable translation design. However, it's not a universal rule. The bank may generate completely new business message identifier when constructing the pacs.008 and not capturing this value, exact this value. For example, your business message identifier could look like something like SBIN, then IN BB 2026 071 7000001. So you can see it's here we are seeing SBI, but here we can see it's a SBI only, but it represents the, it displays a big code of that particular sending bank. So when we use big code, this gives more clarity to the message from the message perspective or at the message level. So both approaches may be possible depending upon the implementation. So field 108 may be used as a source for business message identifier subject to the bank's identifier generation and validation rules. So it must not automatically be duplicated across all the pacs.008 reference fields. Going to the next slide, this is tag 121 or field 121, which is the most important and most straightforward field in the block 3 mapping. So field 121 contains your UETR. UETR means unique end-to-end transaction reference, commonly termed as UETR. The UETR is a 36 character universally unique identifier reference. Here is the example. So this particular value has 36 characters if you count. The easiest way to understand and not forget about UETR is to compare it with a courier tracking number. When a parcel travels through a different sorting centers and delivery partners, the same tracking number helps us follow the parcel. Similarly, when a cross-border payment travels through different correspondent banks, the UETR helps the participating institution follow the payment. Suppose SBI Mumbai sends a customer payment through JP Morgan Chase in New York to Deutsche Bank at Berlin. SBI may create the original payment instruction. JP Morgan will receive it, process it, and forward an instruction to the next institution. During this process, the message identifiers may change because each bank may create a new outgoing message. The instruction identifiers may also change because each agent creates its own point-to-point instruction. But the UETR should continue to represent the same underlying payment transaction. In the in pacs.008, the UETR is basically carried under your creditor transaction transfer, credit transfer transaction information, and inside credit transfer transaction info we have this payment ID, and inside payment ID we have the UETR element. So the direct mapping is MT103 Block 3 field 121 to this particular element, UETR element. And the value does not change. Whatever value we are seeing in the empty world, it gets ditto transferred or carry forward to the PACS ISO 20022 format. Next is field 113, field 119. Field 119 is called your validation flag. In this example, it contains the value STP. This indicates that the message is an MT103 STP variant. STP stands for straight-through processing. Straight-through processing means that the payment is intended to move through the processing chain automatically without unnecessary manual repair or intervention. So to achieve this, an STP message is subject to stricter formatting and data quality rules. For example, certain fields may need to use the specific options, structured values, or restricted formats. This allows the receiving institution system to interpret the payment more consistently. An important mapping correction should be understood here. So we should not say 119 having the STP value directly maps to your service level in the ISO 20022 format. The two values here STP and here SDVA do not mean the same thing as well. So your STP indicates the validated MT103 STP message variant, and SDVA basically means same day value and is an ISO 20022 service level code. So when an MT103 STP is transformed into ISO 20022, the resulting pacs.008 should be constructed according to the applicable pacs.008 STP usage guideline. That usage guideline may impose specific rules on elements such as your service level, for example, this SDVA, which is a service level code. Then it could also impose search bearer, agent data, party data, or other fields. Therefore, any SDVA value that appears in the resulting message comes from the applicable pacs.008 STP or your CBPR plus rules, not because the letters STP are directly translated into SDVA in ISO 20022 format. Another important distinction I want to tell is between STP and priority. So STP is about automation, as you know, it's about automation, data quality, and compliance with the stricter processing rules. And priority is about urgency. So field 119 must not simply map to the instruction priority field as well. A payment can be structured for STP processing without necessarily being marked as high priority. So STP and priority are also two different things. We should not be confused. Coming to field 111 is the service type identifier. In our example, the field contains the value 001. This field indicates that the message is associated with a particular Swift service context. It is important to understand that it is not ordinary customer payment data. It does not tell us who the debtor is, who the creditor is, or how much money is being transferred. Instead, it tells us the messaging environment that a specialized Swift service or processing arrangement is involved. So in case of while we are trying to map this particular field 111, the application header and inside application header we have this business service. This could be a possible related ISO 20022 concept that can be connected to field 111. This basically stands for your business service. It identifies the business service or usage guideline under which the ISO 20022 message is being exchanged. As you can see, this is a guideline. This particular message following CVPR plus usage guideline. However, we must not directly copy the value 001 into inside this particular business service element. The correct business service value is determined by the active Swift service, the applicable message usage guideline, the standards release, and the network configuration. The value can therefore be derived or configured by the messaging interface rather than copied from the field 111. It is also possible that field 111 is handled entirely by Swift service layer and does not produce a separate business data element in the pacs.008 document or XML format. So field 111 has no universal one-to-one destination in the pacs.008. So we will put this particular mapping as a conditional, but that means it will depend upon the conditions. Okay, then coming to field 113 and 103. So field 113 basically contains the banking priority. It may carry a code that is agreed between the sender and the receiver or defined by a particular service. The nearest ISO 20022 transaction level concept may be your instruction priority, right? Common ISO 20022 values include your high and norm. High means your high priority, and this is normal priority. Therefore, if the source field clearly indicates urgent or high priority processing, and if the applicable translation rules support it, field 113 may contribute or may fit into this particular element. However, this is also not a universal copy paste rule. Nowhere is defined. The source value may be a proprietary or bilateral code as well, and the translation engine must interpret that value before assigning or before mapping it to ISO 20022 format. In some conditions, field 113 may be handled as a network level priority rather than populated inside the pacs.008 format. Okay. Next, coming to field 103. Field 103 is service identifier. It may identify a special fin service or closed user group arrangement. The concept may influence your in the ISO format. It may influence your application header business service, the Swift, or it may also influence the Swift service configuration, the network envelope, or a local processing rule. So in some cases, there may be no equivalent pacs.008 mapping at all for this particular field 103. Now, the key message for this two field is that these are conditional mappings. Hence, the source to field definition has to be examined, the target to field definition has to be examined, the service rules have to be examined, the bilateral agreement should be examined, and then it will follow the implementation design. So only then the final mapping rule can be established. Okay. So as we have gone through probably all the fields that come under MT103 block 3, this slide basically brings all the concepts together. On the left hand side, we can see the MT103 format containing the fields belonging to block 3 or the user header block. On the right hand side, we have selected values in the ISO 20022 your application header and the document element. Now let us separate different mappings from generated or derived values. So field 108 contains your message user reference. So the bank may use this value as a source for your business message identifier. So this is the place where it may go. However, as we discussed, the bank may also generate a new identifier inside this particular element. So this is a conditional mapping. Second, the message definition identifier here in the XML format identifies the ISO 20022 message definition. For example, pacs. This we have already seen in the in this basically comes from your block 2 block 2, and this is equivalent to your message type. Okay. Third is your business service. Business service basically identifies the applicable business service or usage guideline. The exact value must come from the current service configuration. However, depending upon the condition, it may also come from field 103 and field 111. It will depend upon the conditions of implementation. Then we have UETR. As we have seen, UETR is direct replica or direct mapping of field 101 to 1. This 1 to 1 basically captures the UETR value. And then we have the service level. This service level can also be mapped to your field 109 depending upon the conditions and the usage guideline. Okay, so this is how the mapping of the block 3 in MT103 to ISO 20022 to pacs.008 format looks like. So coming to this slide, this one basically provides a practical checklist for mostly especially for the business analyst working on MT to MX migration. Step 1 is to identify the source tag. For example, is the field 108, 111, 121, right? Do not begin by immediately searching for a target XML element. First, try to understand the source tag or the source field. Then step 2 is to ask what the field basically represents. Does it represent message identity? Does it represent payment tracking? Does it represent service configuration? Does it represent processing priority? Or is it purely technical network web metadata? So this question prevents the incorrect mappings between fields that only appear similar. Step 3 is choosing the correct ISO 20022 layer. So information may belong to your business application header. It may belong to document. It may belong to Swift or transferred envelope, or nowhere in the result in the XML resulting XML format, because the function is managed through configuration. Step 4 is determining the mapping type. So there are actually 4 useful classifications: direct mapping, then derived mapping, conditional mapping, or no mapping at all. So direct mapping means that the same value moves to the target field, like we have seen for field 121 UETR value. Derived mapping means the target is calculated or selected using a rule. Conditional mapping is applicable only when certain business or service conditions are met. And a no mapping or network level rule means the source data does not appear inside the XML format. Step 5 and the last rule is to validate the mapping. So the analyst should check that the current CBPR plus usage guideline, the bank's internal message rulebook, the interface or translation specification, the current message schema version, and the end-to-end test scenarios. So this is how the mapping logic basically we should follow when we are working on the MT2MX migration. And with this, we come to the end of this session. In the next part of this series, we will move to block 4 to let you know Block 4 is a core payment information block and contains major business fields such as the transaction reference, value date, currency, amount, ordering customer, beneficiary, financial institutions, charges, remittance information, so on. So block 4 is going to be the interesting part of the entire mapping that we are trying to cover. And this is where a large part of MT103 to pacs.008 business mapping takes place. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to my channel and share the video with anyone learning Swift payments, ISO 20022, or any payment system. So I will see you in the next video. Bye.